So you are thinking about moving to the Dallas area, but you're not quite sure if that's the place for you? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you reasons to think about before you choose Dallas over the suburbs of Dallas. So I live in Denton, Texas. We are about 35 or 45 minutes north of Dallas-Fort Worth. Depending on where you live in Denton, you could be right off the highway. It's not that big of a drive. Or if you're like me and you live in the north side of town, then it takes you a little bit more time to get there. But there are many suburbs of Dallas. There's Frisco, Plano, Louisville, Carrollton, McKinney. Where I live in Denton, there are a lot of suburbs of Dallas and Fort Worth as well. In fact, we will be having a video soon on a suburb of Fort Worth called Pecan Square. So it's, just a little bit north of Fort Worth, but you're not having to deal with all the traffic and all the things I'm going to talk about in this video. Okay, so let's talk about cost of living in Dallas compared to a suburb of Dallas. Generally, when you're in the center of a big city or you're really in the thick of it, cost of living is just going to be higher. And most of that's going to come in the form of entertainment and maybe even transportation and of course housing. Because when it comes to cost of living, you're looking at housing, transportation, food, and entertainment. So the biggest factor is going to be housing. And along with the price of the home, because Texas does have property tax, that means your property tax is going to be higher because it's based on a percentage. So it's not just the cost of the home, it's going to be property taxes as well that's going to go up. Where I live here in Denton, our property tax on a $400,000 house, because if you have homestead exemption, which we can talk about that later, but basically it's an exemption that helps to lower your tax burden. But on a $400,000 house, if you're only being taxed on about $300,000, that could be like about $7,000 a year, $6,000, $7,000 a year. Well, if you live in Dallas and your home is $500, $600, $700, $800, $1 million, you can see how that's going to have a huge impact. We've got friends who live in houses closer to Fort Worth, and they're paying about $20,000 a year just in property tax. So that's definitely something to consider, is not only housing, but if you choose to live in Dallas or Fort Worth, that's going to inevitably increase your property tax. And I know that, sometimes we like to go to restaurants here in Denton or close by, or maybe somewhere in Louisville or Plano or Frisco. That's fabulous and that's great. But as soon as we choose to go to someplace in Dallas, we know, okay, this is going to cost us more to eat dinner in Dallas versus just staying here. So food, especially in the form of entertainment, is definitely going to be higher in Dallas than it would be a suburb. Okay, let's talk about education. And you can go to niche.com or greatschools.org and you can look at specific school ratings. You can look at school ratings for like the actual school, for the city and things like that. But suburbs tend to have a little bit higher school rating than being in the city. You might have smaller class sizes and more community involvement as well. That is a generalization. I understand that, but those are just, that's just the way it is. It just tends to be that way, that when you're in the suburbs, schools are a little bit different than if you're living in a major city. Okay, let's talk about safety. Suburbs tend to have a lower crime rate than city centers. And obviously this can lead to a sense of safety and security for families. But also, not just for families, but for individuals as well. I know I've got kids that don't live at home anymore, and I want to make sure that they're safe where they are. So it's not just where you're going to raise your family, but just where you are going to live. And if you have peace of mind there, if you feel safe and secure, and suburbs just tend to have lower crime rates than the cities do. So once again, that's just the way it is. Okay, now let's talk about traffic. I was actually in Dallas not too long ago, the other day, and oh my goodness. Sure, it's convenient to be, near the big amenities and the museums and the parks and the fancy restaurants and things like that. I'm sure it's great if you live there, but oh my goodness, the traffic, it's just massive. And then I come back home and it's just so easy to zip around town. And the city I live in, Denton, we've got about 140,000 residents. So we're not a super small town by any means, but you're comparing that to a city that has, over 1 million. So commuting, traffic is definitely going to be a huge issue when it comes to living in a city like Dallas. Traffic congestion seems to be lighter in suburban areas, so it's going to reduce your drive time And not only that, but it's just gonna overall reduce the stress that's related to traffic. Almost any time I'm coming in and out of Dallas, there's a car accident somewhere. And so it just adds time and stress to my commute. So I know for me personally, I've always thought about, oh, it'd be so fun to live in downtown Dallas in a high-rise condo, you know, and things like that. But I don't know that that's something I could do in the long term. It's nice to come back home where it's just a little bit more chill. The community seems to be a lot more tight-knit. I feel more secure and I can drive around town and not have to worry about hitting traffic. You know, ultimately, it really just depends on you. It's what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? You know, what do you prefer? Do you prefer being in the downtown with the horns and the sirens and the traffic and the headlights and the city lights and all those things and the buildings? Or do you just like to visit those places every now and then, but come home to a house that you can afford and cars that you can afford and food that you can afford so that your budget, your income, that paycheck goes a lot further? Where I live here in Denton, we do have a really good nightlife and a really good cultural scene. I've got other videos on discovering Denton, downtown Denton, things like that. We offer a lot here. So there's many times I don't even need to go to Dallas to get what I want. But what I do like is that if I want to go to Dallas and do something there, it's really just, you know, for me, it's probably about a 45-minute drive. So that's just not a big deal. So Dallas versus the suburbs. So there you have it, living in Dallas versus living in the suburbs. But you know what? It's gonna all be based on what your preference is, and not only your preference, but you've got to make sure that your budget lines up with what you want. But like I said, I live just north of Dallas and Fort Worth. I am Jennifer Fowler, and along with my husband, Brandon, we run Fowler Realty Team here in the North Texas area. And we get people just like you that reach out to us all the time, just wanting to know information about living in the North Texas area, and we absolutely love it. So whether that's you and you're looking to move in 9 days or 9 months, give us a call, shoot us a text, you can send us an email. All the information is in the description below. And if this is your first time to our channel, please like, subscribe, tap the bell for notifications. We put videos out every week on the Dallas area, so you can be the first to know everything there is to know about living in the Dallas, North Texas area. And don't forget to check out some of the other videos we have, and we'll see you on the next one.